All right, good evening. Welcome to the Oxford Public Schools School Committee meeting, Monday, March 28th, 2022. Please note that face coverings and masks are optional in all school buildings until further notice. Regular school committee meetings are videotaped by Oxford Cable Access and broadcast live on the town's public access educational cable, channel 194, as well as on the Oxford Public Schools Facebook page. Video recordings of regular meetings may also be viewed subsequent to the live broadcast via the town's YouTube channel, which may be accessed from either the Town of Oxford website or the Oxford Public Schools website. Thank you. So at this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We do have a special presentation tonight, the Community Service Award recipient recognition of Joe Pietrzak, better known as Coach P. I just want to read his nomination entry that was sent to us a few weeks ago. Coach P has been the Oxford girls varsity basketball coach for the past several years. He inherited a program that was dwindling near extinction, where there was very little participation / interest and a lack of dedication and commitment. Over the past years, Coach P has built a program that not only encourages young women to be the best they can be on and off the court, but one that also expects all players to work hard and treat each other and their opponents with respect. Coach P dedicates a significant amount of his time not only to offer more practice opportunities for players, but also offering clinics for all students. Coach P works tirelessly to build a community-like atmosphere when it comes to girls basketball in Oxford. Specifically, this past year and 2 years ago, not able to last year due to COVID, he implemented the night at the Oxford Lady Pirates, where all students K-12 were invited to attend a night at the girls' basketball game for free admission, which included a drink, pizza, and an opportunity to have a picture with the current varsity players. This has been a successful night in the past and a joy to watch younger girls feel a part of the OHS girls' basketball community. Coach P takes great pride in everything that he does and continues to be a positive role model for members of the Oxford community. He supports other athletes by attending other athletic events and supports his own athletes by attending extracurricular activities outside of basketball. Each year, Coach P has an annual Christmas party practice where alumni come back and enjoy a scrimmage with current Oxford High School players. During this time, Coach P will give an introduction to each alumni who attends, demonstrating how much he truly cares about each and every one of the players he has had. Through these types of events, Coach P has made the Oxford girls basketball program more than just a program, but more like a family. Coach P is a true champion of the Oxford community and deserves to be recognized for all of his hard work and dedication. So the Community Service Award, the Town of Oxford School Committee takes great pride in presenting this certificate to Joseph Pietrzak in recognition of his significant contributions to the Oxford community with our heartfelt congratulations and a sincere thank you. We thank you so much for your efforts each day and for the amazing dedication you always display. We are grateful to know we can count on you. Please accept our appreciation for all that you do. So Coach P, if you don't mind coming on up. How about a round of applause? I know he has a lot of his players here. If you want to say a few words, you can certainly sit at the mic over there. If not,
sure. I can't pass up an opportunity.
Of course. Good to see you.
I promise I'll be brief. It's not the first time people have heard that. I just, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Lucas, and the school committee members. This means a lot to us. To win the Community Service Award, it just means so much to us. And I say us because we are a team. We are truly a team. And I think it starts with my wife, Jane, who always supports me in everything that I do. And, those of you who know spouses of coaches or have been a spouse of a coach yourself know that can be extremely difficult sometimes. And I really appreciate her support. I also would be remiss if I didn't thank Carly Parmenter, my current JV coach, who's in attendance tonight as well. Carly's a former player of mine. She graduated back in 2017. And has come back to assist me now at the varsity level and run our JV program. And it's extremely important for alumni like Carly, who know how we do business here and can sort of convey that to our younger players. It's really been a blessing to have Carly. I also want to thank Lauren Pietro, who couldn't be here tonight. Coach Pietro was my longtime assistant coach before Coach Parmenter got here this year. And Coach Pietro exhibited what we call, girls can tell you, what we call the 3 E's in our program. So effort, enthusiasm, and energy. And Coach Pietro brought those to the table every day that she coached with us. And I know that our girls felt that effort, energy, and enthusiasm every day as well. So thanks to Coach Pietro. I also want to thank the Oxford Community Center for partnering with us lately in terms of most recently doing some clinics. It's been a fantastic partnership that I really hope to build on as we go forward. And one final thank you goes to the young ladies behind me that took time out of their day today to come and support me and to support us as a program in this award. And as I said earlier, you can't do this alone. You can't win a community service award alone. And these girls behind me, every time I ask them for anything, for volunteers for anything, they raise their hand. And the first thing was, we want to go to do a clinic at the community center. They were like, when is it? What can we do to help? And they're always there. And I will say the same thing about our alumni, who continue to reach out to me year after year. And, Carly can speak to that as well. And they continue to ask, Coach, what can we do for you? How can we help? The mentorship that these older kids can provide for our younger girls in town is huge, and we really try to foster that relationship. So I'll leave it there, but we're just so excited, and I'm very humbled to receive this tonight. So thank you.
Well, Coach,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I know you're a Twitter guy and you like to post stuff. So why don't you have the girls come up? You guys can stand in front
that'd
of
be
us, and we'll
fantastic.
stand behind.
Oh,
And
there you go.
you make sure you
Well,
get your
I'll
wife
stand
up. She's
behind.
just as important a piece of this.
All right, come Jane.
So we can just kind of stand behind them while they're up front. Come on, girls, get up. Somebody's got to take the picture. So somebody grab a
Justin's taking
camera or
it up.
something.
Mike, you might want to be here for the picture.
Oh, okay.
Justin.
will take the picture then.
Perfect.
Do they have to kneel down?
No, I think you'd be fine, as long as we're in the back. You all
Okay,
in
so
front
the
are
front
important.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of tighten up in the back. Tighten up.
Exactly, we'll grab you. Tighten up, girls. Tighten up.
Ready?
Yep.
Cheese.
Cheese.
We got a couple.
All right,
Awesome.
awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach
Thank
P.
you, Coach.
Thank you
for
so much.
coming out.
Thank you, Lady Pirates. That's awesome.
All right. I always start with the good stuff.
All right, you can all feel free to stay or leave. You don't have to stay. So moving
Bye,
along,
everyone.
we do have a public hearing to discuss school choice and our operating budget. We do need to take a vote to open and close this meeting, so I believe I need to read this, right, to the record. So the Oxford School Committee will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 28th, 2022, on the topic of school choice for the school year 2022-2023, according to Chapter 76, Section 12B of the Massachusetts General Laws, and also on the topic of the school department budget for the school year 2022-2023, consistent with the provisions of Chapter 71, Section 38N of the Massachusetts General Laws. All interested persons shall be given an opportunity to be heard per the public hearing notice duly posted with the office of the town clerk. A copy of the proposed FY23 budget, once available, can be viewed on the Oxford Public Schools website, oxps.org. The public hearing will be followed by a regular school committee meeting. Notice of this public hearing is also posted on the Massachusetts Newspaper Publishers Association's MNPA website, masspublicnotices.org. So we do need a motion to go into public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open public hearing.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. Ms. Cook? Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
I'm a yes, 4 yes, 1 absent. We are in public hearing, so I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Okay, great. It's okay if we do school choice first?
Sure.
Budget? Okay. For school choice, you have a memo in your packet. We are entering year 2 of our district learning, recovery, and acceleration plan after the pandemic. It will be a year of ensuring we have the resources and staffing to provide impactful academic instruction as well as social, emotional, in-building supports for our kids. Thus, with the need to focus heavily on students already in the Oxford School District, the administrators and I respectfully request that the school committee vote not to approve school choice for the 22-23 school year. And that's what we're asking for tonight.
Any questions for the superintendent or any discussions? Don't see anyone in the public at this point who would probably want to comment, but anything from the board members?
Of course.
Mrs. Forbes?
So, I just want to say that with some of our new programs here in the high school, I feel like those opportunities could be valuable to students in other districts. So I would like my fellow board members to think about that, and I understand, you know, financially and where we are in our recovery plan, but I think it's important for us to get more students to increase our, not only our enrollment, but also our reputation in being able to showcase what we're doing really well. And that takes other people knowing about it, not just us talking about it and bragging about it and, you know, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Forbes. Anybody else? This is just a public, you know, hearing session. We will have the opportunity to potentially vote on this later, where we can have some more discussion prior. So if there's no more discussion on school choice, turn it over to the budget.
Okay, great. Okay, excellent.
So not going to take a vote tonight?
Well, no, we have the vote later on down, so we can have more discussion and to see how we want to decide to do that.
Are we gonna vote without one of our members?
Well, we'll discuss that. You know, do we want to just table that vote? That's obviously a possibility for us to do. But I want to stick to
Okay,
the flow of the agenda.
got it,
All
All right,
thank
and
you.
if we are going to vote and there's more, you know, if that's what the committee's going to do this evening, I'd weigh my 2 cents in on my opinion
Yeah,
as well.
later, same here, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, okay. Mr. Lucas or Mr. Ledoux?
Yes,
Who's
okay.
driving this one?
I'll get us started. You guys all have a line level budget version in your packet, I believe. Justin and I did present this to the Finance Committee last week. Tonight we'll talk about staffing, enrollment, and some budget trends. Justin, are you doing the slides, or?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so that's kind of an outline of what's in your packet. The next slide really talks about our guiding principles for our budget. Since the fall, we've received input from our stakeholders and our school community, and Justin and I have worked with our administrative team to present a budget that supports our students in all their different ways and needs. This does support our district learning, recovery, and acceleration plan from the pandemic with a focus on academically on reading and math, includes additional social emotional learning and mental health supports for our students. Everything in education today emphasizes preparing our students for college and career readiness. We are working at the high school to increase student access and enrollment in our AP classes so they can build stronger transcripts and receive admission to colleges, as well as qualify for more grants and scholarships as they head off from Oxford High School. In addition, we are also introducing 3 new potential career paths for our students that we've discussed here before. Moving 8th grade back to the middle school will allow us to have the room for these programs. Middle school will be grades 5 through 8, and the high school will be grades 9 through 12 next year. The 3 new programs, for those that are listening, are Fire Science 1, which will be taught by our fire chief, who has volunteered to teach that to our students, where students will become firefighter, EMTs, and first responders, and hopefully provide the town of Oxford with some future firemen and some volunteers heading forward, as there's a huge need for that right now in Oxford. We will be one of a handful of high schools in the state that offer that program. As September just said earlier, it is something that we think is going to attract other people to our school system. We're going to offer a CNA class that will be taught by Mrs. Granette here in the high school, allow students to gain state certification. We're also going to have an early education and child care program that will certify students to become preschool teachers and daycare providers. Again, offering kids that choice of college or career is really important. We have a wonderful opportunity for kids to attend BayPath, but we want to also offer kids some different options here at the high school. As we presented to the Finance Committee last week, we are asking for an increase of 3% this year. Our enrollment increased this past year by 11 students and continues to rise slightly throughout the year. This is our best estimate at this time, as we still have much to be determined as we are negotiating 3 union contracts also during this year. The priority for tonight's meeting is that we're asking for you to approve and certify our final budget total number, and we recognize that we will then have to work with that number going forward. The inherent cost of providing quality education for our students does increase yearly, but we do believe that this budget allows for quality education for all of our kids. At that point, if there's no questions, I'll hand it over to Justin, present some of the numbers. Does that sound good
Sure.
Okay.
Any questions, anybody?
so far?
So far, so good.
All right, Justin,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you very much. And please, as I go through these slides, if anybody has any questions, please stop me at any time.
Thank you.
So just a little refresher on the budget timeline and process. This is a year-long process that involves a wide range of stakeholders. I feel like I'm really preaching to the choir here with the school committee, as I know you folks have been involved in quite a few budget workshops, especially in the month of December. I know we had a few marathon meetings. But just as a reminder, in October, the school committee gave the charge to the superintendent to create a level services budget. So that's what we have for you this evening. A little bit more of the timeline, the process. The principals normally submit to us in November, December for their needs and what their building's going to look like for next school year. Throughout the month of December, we hold individual workshops with the school committee and principals. It usually takes 3 to 4 budget workshops to create a preliminary budget. In January, the governor's budget is released with state aid and assessments, and we have a discussion with the town manager regarding the financial health of the town. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit so you can kind of see the revisions that have occurred since our last discussion, which was probably back in December. So here, just jumping right ahead to the timeline, the third to last bullet. Here's where we are. So last week was the budget presentation to the Finance Committee, and this week is the school committee public hearing to certify the fiscal '23 budget. A few more steps. Wrap up the budget document. As Mr. Lucas has said, this is our best guess at this point in time, with 3 contracts currently being negotiated. That leaves a lot of unknowns. And finally, the first week in May is when the town meeting officially approves the school budget figure. So just quickly, I'm going to go through district-wide staff. Now, these are folks that, in some form or fashion, either they work in multiple buildings or they support the district at a central office capacity. So we have our district-wide administrators, the business office, district-wide Sped personnel, including psychologists, social workers, OT, PT, therapists. Our IT folks and our food service folks are also included in this number. This is 42 staff members here for our district-wide staff. Moving along, the next counts we have are at each building. At Chafee School, we have 51 staff members, Barton School 48, middle 61, and high school 70. It's for a total of 272 employees. Now, this includes our grant-funded staff, but excludes substitutes, maybe temporary or seasonal employees. I wanted to mention the grant-funded staff as on our next slide, you're going to see our counts for all of our ESER positions. Now, this past school year, we hired, as part of our district acceleration and recovery plan, we hired 34 staff members. At this point in time, we have 32, and if anyone watched the presentation the other night, I left out the dean of students that was added mid-year on this slide, which would bring it to 32 staff members. Just as a reminder, the ESER 2 and ESER 3 grants are part of a 2-year plan, two-year learning and acceleration plan. At this point in time, we have a lot to discuss regarding that, but I'm not going to dig into too much detail as that's kind of outside of the regular operating budget, but I just want to make note of that.
Yeah, just a quick point of clarification,
Yes,
just
sir.
for the public. So you said that there was 230 staff members from those 4 buildings, correct? Initially?
272 across the board,
272 across, that's counting central office.
central office and every other.
All right, so
all the school
then,
buildings.
if you took the 32 off, right? The 32 for the ESER money is included in that number, correct?
Correct.
All right. just so people are aware, if they're starting to, those are just not sustaining positions. Those are only 1 to 2 year positions.
Exactly.
Just so people understand that at home who are watching, that those 32 positions will be coming off the books once the
Correct.
funding is done.
At this point in time, we've had discussions of kind of phasing it out. Nothing has been set in stone yet.
Right.
Again, the focus has been to get through the regular operating budget and to leave this separate, not to muddy the waters.
Yeah.
But-
May,
Yes, go ahead, Mrs. Green.
would you mind just saying current staff by building again, the totals?
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you.
So,
Just quick.
yep, let me just back up. That was 51 at Chafee School, 48 at Barton School, 61 at Oxford Middle School, and 70 staff members at OHS.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And does that include the ESER positions?
That does include the ESER
Okay,
positions.
thank you.
Went over the ESER positions, again, temporary positions. I'm going to dig into student enrollment. The trend across the state has been a decrease. I think it's fair to say most school districts have seen a decrease in enrollment, some more so than others. Especially with COVID last year. COVID impacted us. It was a large decrease, I'll put it that way. We saw a reduction of 122 students last year, which is very atypical compared to we normally have an average about 50 students that we lose. So to lose 122 was atypical, but it given the pandemic, it does make sense. Everybody has their own opinion on it. March of 2022, so just recently, as you can see in the final column there, we've actually bounced back 11 more students than last year. So rather than a reduction of an additional 50 from last year, we saw an increase, a slight increase of just over 10 students. Given the staffing that you saw on the prior slides, that gives us an average class size at the elementary level of around 15. And at middle and high, it gets slightly higher. It's about 18 to 20 on average.
And is there one grade that's heavily larger than others? Because like when you say 18 to 20 on average, it's hard to really,
Yeah, the 5th grade is bigger. 144 students currently.
so it's
enrolled.
approximately like 25, 26 in that 5th grade class, correct?
Yes.
And then the other classes, what would they be?
The 6th grade is 130 students. 7th grade is 123. 8th grade is 127. Want me to keep going?
Yep.
9th grade is 100. 10th grade is 94. 11th is 93, and 12th is 87.
And do you
Now,
mind,
those could be off by 1 or 2
Right.
just because of registrations and.
do you mind saying 5th again?
Yes, 5th grade is 144. That is the highest class in Oxford.
Yeah.
In 6th grade is 130, is the second highest. If you go down Palmina, 4th grade is 102, 3rd grade is 112, 2nd grade is 100, and 1st grade is the smallest at 77. Kindergarten has 105. We did have NESDEC do a projection for us in the fall, and they're going to do another one. We should have those results soon, so I'll be happy to share those with you guys, if that helps.
I don't know if I got them all 100%. And I know some other committees have used NESDEC, but they've also used some other consultants because NESDEC numbers weren't necessarily giving an accurate projection. They were kind of dropping off more than other predictions in the state. So I wouldn't put too much stock into just one certain
Sure.
organization that's kind of
Sure.
gave us those numbers. They've been doing that throughout the state.
Right.
There's been other school districts that have been kind of doing their own other check and balancing of those numbers, because again, it's
Right.
just one person's opinion based
Right.
on looking at some of the data, so I'd be cautious taking all,
Yeah,
You
it's
know.
a service that they provide
Right.
because we're members.
Yeah.
I believe this board is members of it, of NESDEC,
Yeah.
so. We try to take advantage of it because it's a free service that they offer, so. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
thank
Anybody
you.
else? Because I just have Just a clarifying question that maybe we can get out there for the public. 'Cause there was something on Facebook over the weekend talking about the 5-year budget history. Somebody has posted FY19 all the way to FY23 and questioning, 200 student difference between F19 and FY23 or 22, however you want to look at it. But, so about 11% drop in students, but a 12% increase in spending. So I guess my question is, when I look at this 5-year budget history online, for FY22, it's got 1563 for foundation enrollment, and we have 1463. So can somebody just explain to me, why is that number off? Why aren't they matched?
What number were you referring to? Where'd you get the other number?
It's off of, it's 5-year budget history. It's, somebody posted it onto the Facebook page, but it certainly looks like maybe it was at the Finance Committee presentation. Somebody picked it.
There's a slide a little bit further in.
That will explain that?
Which
Oh,
I think
okay.
is what you're referring to.
Oh, okay, I'm just looking at, I just saw this over the weekend, and I was just kind of comparing to what I see on this, the 3-year history. But if there's something later on that's going to explain
There
it
is,
this
there's a
time. Okay.
slide, that's a great question.
Then I'll press
The
pause.
foundation enrollment is at 1571, that includes all our charter school kids.
Okay,
So
that's-
that's why, that explains that
Okay,
number.
all right.
In brief terms.
Thank you, and we'll get to it after.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, perfect, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. On this next slide here is, you're gonna see the school choice and homeschool counts. The school choice, and the reason why I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention, is you can see for this year, we have one school choice student. That means we're bringing in roughly $5,000 just for that one student. Point being is we use school choice monies to offset half of a teacher's salary. It's roughly $42,000 to $43,000 per year. We are a year behind with that revolving fund, so we will be able to offset that teacher salary by $43,000 for next year, but then after that, we won't be able to do that any longer, because these funds will dry up. As you can see, without the school choice, we lose that revenue stream. The next column here with respect to homeschool, you can see what happened with COVID. Homeschooling became extremely popular. You can see it went from 18 students in the prior year to 50. And the thing that I found interesting is it really hasn't gone back. This year, we haven't really seen a big reduction in homeschool students. So when we asked the question, where did our children go, and we saw the large decrease, at about 50 of them necessarily didn't leave Oxford, they just chose to homeschool. The next slide here with special education enrollment. This current year, we have 275 students. That's inclusive of our out-of-district students and in-district students. In prior years, you can see it kind of jumps all over the place. We went from 273 to 284, now back down to 265. The reason why I wanted to bring this to your attention is to talk about volatility in the Sped budget and what it can do to your budget. As you can see, the enrollment is kind of all over the place. But as we go through the figures here, there's no direct correlation to the cost. You could have less students and it could cost more. And that kind of touches upon maybe some of the budget history that you're seeing with a trend of declining enrollment, but increased cost. There's not always a direct correlation between the number of students and the cost for what things cost. So when we talk about special ed, we're talking about salaries out of district tuitions, our in-district programs, our transportation, and any contracted services. As you can see, our special education transportation costs have decreased over the years. I believe that's a direct result of outsourcing and going with an outside company. We did say some time ago that we would see significant savings, and we do continue to see that as time has gone on. And just kind of back to what I was saying, the out-of-district tuition costs, you can see that there is no direct correlation to this. So with 23 students back in fiscal 21, it was $1.8 million for those out-of-district costs. This year, we have 22 students, and it's just over $2 million. And we're anticipating next year just 20 students, as we have some students that are going to be graduating. it will drop back down to the initial 1.8 we experienced 2 years ago. So again, it's no direct correlation to the students regarding cost. It's very volatile. It's all over the place. So that makes my job extremely difficult when we're trying to get a handle on these things. However, one thing that has been consistent has been the percentage of the total sped cost. It has consistently been 36% of our operating budget. So as the transportation costs and out of district kind of fluctuate, it has consistently been 36% of our budget. So even as our budget increased, you can see that the sped costs have the same trend. It still remains at 36%. So just for next year, we are looking at, let's see, just over $7 million for total for sped cost. And that includes, transportation includes all sped expenditures. Going into next year, I know Mr. Lucas had touched on this earlier, there's a lot of assumptions and unknowns. The biggest one we have right now is our collective bargaining, our 3 contracts. We do not know where those salaries are going to end up, and with salaries being a good 75% of our budget, that is the biggest cost. We're a service industry, everything is, the bulk of our budget is salaries. So for what we have, this document we have brought forward, it accounts for everything that we do know, meaning supplies and things that are fairly static and easy to predict. It assumes increases for collective bargaining agreements. That's certainly not where it's going to end up for what we have for placeholders. And it assumes that our budget offsets, meaning circuit breaker and grants, will remain stable. We're very confident in that, as we've worked to be a year behind on that, so there shouldn't be any surprises. It includes merit-based increases for individual contracts, so that's performance-based increases, and all out-of-district tuitions as of just a few weeks ago. Some of the unknowns are identification of the cost of personnel and programs, and what that's speaking to is unknown move-ins or anything that we don't know as far as, and a good example of this would be ELL students for this past year. We saw a large increase in ELL, and nobody could have predicted that. We certainly didn't know that. This also does not account for any sped out-of-district placements after this month. I know that I believe there's a deadline of April 1st as to when we own those kiddos. However, we don't know. I mean, everything is still kind of up in the air. We have the rest of this week. 4 days. And it also includes homeless transportation. Homeless and foster transportation seems to be another area of volatility. We cannot predict that, and it seems to be all over the place from year to year. It differs widely. Going back to some of our mission statement and vision, some of our guiding principles, leads us to some of our funded budget requests. Athletic trainer was something that we initiated last year. We paid for that out of our athletic revolving fund. However, that's a large amount to keep charging to an athletic revolving fund that doesn't bring in that same amount, so that was only a limited thing on a trial basis. So in order to keep that same service, we would have to move that to our operational budget. So we did move that $25,000 to our operating budget. As a net cost, that's only $18,000, as we have moved one-time supplies out of the operational budget into the revolving fund, as that's probably a little bit more say sustainable and makes more sense to do one-time costs out of a revolving fund.
Could I ask a question about that? I know that, so you spoke about the athletic trainer. I know we put in place scorekeepers and other things this year. And I'm trying to think of approximately how much that costs, but that was from athletic receipts, was it not, that we funded those
Correct.
positions?
I would like to say for this year, off the top of my head, and please don't quote me on it, it was about 14,000.
I feel like it was something like that, maybe a little bit.
So those positions have always existed.
Okay,
I think this past year, we finally just formalized the rates of pay.
Okay.
And brought forward job descriptions and things like that. In the past, I'm not really sure how it was done, but I can tell you that they've always existed. They're not a new thing.
So they're
Just the way that we have funded those has shifted over the years. I want to say at this point, it's probably 50-50. Half of our, half of that is paid from our operational budget and the other half out of gate receipts loosely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Another new addition for next year is the ELL curriculum and an ELL aide. This year, we were unsuccessful in finding an ELL instructor, so we went with an ELL aide. The combination of those two things is $27,000 for next year. That was just an increase to the operational budget. I know we've had quite a few conversations about iStation. I'm here just to talk about the cost. iStation for next year is $28,000. The net cost is $10,000, as we have had eliminated other softwares that are not currently being used. So the net increase to your operational budget is $10,000 for iStation.
May I ask, what did we eliminate?
I would have to go through and find that information for you, but I will be more than happy to do that.
I'd like to know that.
Certainly.
Sorry.
I would have to compare from year to year, but I can certainly do that for you. We've also incorporated the replacement of 140 Chromebooks. That is a net increase of $15,000. I believe there was other hardwares that was in the IT budget that were eliminated in place of Chromebooks, as we have to get a solid replacement plan in place if we want to sustain the one-to-one initiative. And as Mr. Lucas had spoke to, the new electives at OHS. At this point in time, we're not looking at any type of increase to our operational budget for these, but I did want to mention them on this slide as they are new to the district. And kind of back to the guiding principles of our mission statement, a lot of these areas touch on, technology, preparedness for, college, career, and military, and that's exactly what we're aiming for here in this budget.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, so I'm thrilled that there's these new programs. I wanna know, like, in regards to sustainability for fire science and certified nursing assistant in the early education program, is this gonna potentially cost the district a certain amount of money to continue this program, these types of programs, or how?
For next year,
Not for.
we're not seeing any increase.
But for the year after,
the
like, what's
following
the
year.
sustainability to be bringing these to the Oxford Public Schools? How are we gonna continue to fund these positions?
It's a great question.
We believe they're sustainable. That's why we're starting them. It's something we're gonna have to look at every year as we're gonna have to look at all programs for budget as we go through, especially as the ESSER monies disappear. But we do believe they are sustainable at this time. We have the staffing to do it right now. We believe we can cover it. So that is our hope.
That's the only thing that makes me leery. I love the thought of doing this. I love the
Yep.
thought of bringing this to the Oxford Public Schools. I love the idea of our students investing their time and energy to this. I would hate to see it evaporate. So one thing that would make me feel comfortable would be understanding how it's a sustainable vision. Because I don't really understand it yet. I know there's a lot of people that seem to be volunteering their time, which is amazing.
Yeah, all three programs will be taught by folks we already have on staff, except for the fire chief is volunteering with some of his gentlemen. So obviously, there's no guarantees on staffing going forward with anybody for any position in any program, but it is our hope that it is very sustainable and stays here at a very low cost of what we already have for our staffing. So the fire thing is critical, that we have a volunteer from the town that's willing to teach it. That is the huge part about it, because you have to really be a fireman to teach this and want to teach it. So that's the part that's out of our control. But budgetarily, we believe this is very sustainable, so, for us going forward.
Yeah, I just want to say that, for Mike and his team, I think it's amazing, and I just want to stress to the public that we're bringing on three, basically, paths for kids to engage with, which is needed at a high school. If you're not into sports, if you're not into theater, if you're not into music or art, this is something that's going to engage a whole different population. And I think it's amazing we can bring it in cost neutral right now. And I would never, ever want to not do something because we're not sure of the future. I think we cross that bridge when we get to it. I think that's our job as a committee. If it does require funding, we figure out how we can work with the administration to get it. But I just wanted to say publicly, I think it's an amazing opportunity for a whole different group of students to engage in the high school experience at a different level. So just wanted to compliment the whole team for that. I think it's great.
There are some, back to Palmina's, if I could, for.
Yeah, sure.
Where we're using some of our grant money to get the fire book, the textbook for the kids, and the workbooks. There's some initial costs for the CNA program that we're going to use some of our grant money on. But as far as this budget that we're presenting tonight for next year, we're going to have all that set up before we start the program, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So we're very fortunate that we have some ESSER funds available that we can use to help set up these programs. So this is kind of the time to do it. So it's not coming out of a general budget. So that's part of our philosophy. So I just don't want anybody to perceive that there is no setup cost.
Yeah.
There is some setup cost, but we believe we can take care of it right now with what we have to get it set up and get it propelled for going forward for the kids in Oxford.
Great, thank you
That's
for,
all.
thank you for that clarification. Thank you. Go ahead, Justin.
Alrighty, unfunded budget requests. We did receive requests from our special education department for a speech assistant and a psychologist, and as much as we would like to fill every need out there, unfortunately, these two, we weren't able to fill at this point in time. Possibly down the road, if there's some type of breakage or something happens, we will be more than happy to look at that. And possibly underfunded areas, I know I don't have that on the slide, and this kind of goes back to the unknowns, but just two things I did touch on was the foster and homeless transportation. I believe that we funded roughly $15,000 for those areas. However, this year, just in foster transportation alone, I want to say it's close to $50,000. But again, it's very volatile. It's all over the place. It's very hard to predict those. And the second area I'm seeing large increases this year is utilities, notably propane. So Clara Barton Elementary still uses propane for their heat, and we have seen an increase of about $1.25 per gallon this past year. So if that holds true for next year, we might have to make some changes on utilities, especially at Barton School. More on that to come.
Can we just circle back real quick to the unfunded budget requests? I'm a little, I guess I need some clarifying answers. I don't know if it will be able to happen tonight, which is fine, but, you know, a speech assistant, you know, that's a service that's within a student's IEP potentially, so if we're gonna be stretched thin with the SLPs, and they need support, I think we need to take a look at that.
That was my thought.
And the school psychologist as well. You know, we're digging through year one post, well, we're not at the endemic yet, but we're close. And, you know, at the end of the year, we're really gonna see where kids are at, where regression's at. You know, there's probably gonna be I know the history of here, I've been here, and, you know, I know school psychologists were stretched pretty thin for the most part when I was here. I can't imagine that the caseloads are getting any less. So if these are positions that are needed, I know these aren't like wish list positions. These could be potential needed positions. I would like a little bit more of an explanation on that, because I think we need to find that money. And whether we get creative through ESSER for a year to bridge the gap, I don't know. But to me, those are two positions that, you know, could be important.
I feel the same way. I just want to understand why they're being needed, and if somebody says they're needed, then I feel like they gotta be needed, and they gotta be put in place. Yeah. I wouldn't want to cut any corners.
I mean, I think there is a need. Some of our speech services, we have to go out to a consultant. We have to use grant money for it. So the idea being, in a perfect world, we'd have somebody who's another full-time person that's here at our beck and call and can service when needed. The psychologist, the cases and issues, behaviors with kids, I think are up all over the country. Everywhere I go, every meeting I'm in, they talk about how behaviors of kids have escalated, K through 12, not just in high school or anything else, but everywhere. So that would give us another full-time position. So we can consider that and make it a priority if things shift in the budget and we have room for it. I don't think we would argue against you that we need it. We could use it, but at some point we had to decide what our general budget was going to be going forward. But we can absolutely keep that in mind going forward. And also as some of our ESSER funds shift also too.
Yeah.
That's kind of changed throughout the years. Some people have left and stuff like that. So we may have some flexibility there too.
Okay.
And just I have seen I don't want to say a large increase, but I know that we've contracted those services out. It's not like the students are going without it. It's just we contract
Right.
the service
No,
versus having an
understood.
employee.
Yeah.
services. I
Right.
don't want to mislead anybody.
Yeah, no. And
Yeah, and if we could fill those positions instead of having to contract for them, that might behoove us and actually help us more in the long run.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So on this next slide, we have our fiscal '23 budget request, which Mr. Lucas had said is a 3% increase over the fiscal '22 budget. So that's a total budget of $19,339,254. If I may, it's not on any slide, but I just want to go through some more significant changes that I have seen since the committee had last met and gone over the budget. I believe that was during the budget workshops. Our original request was a 3.2% increase. However, when we did first speak with the town, they said, well, try a 2.5% increase. So we had to cut about $150,000 but after the initial budget was brought forward, after the first draft that we had. Shortly thereafter, the town did come back and say, you know what, we can afford a 3% increase. So there have been a lot of, I'll say, ins and outs of this budget. A lot of stuff was decreased and some stuff was put back. So in no particular order, I just wanted to go through by different categories, major changes I've seen. We've seen about a $6,400 change in IT staffing, as we've had some staffing changes in the IT department. The payroll salary in the business office, that has been reduced by roughly $5,000. That was done just to balance the budget, really, as that position currently does not exist. It exists, excuse me. There's nobody in the position, let me put it that way. Lane changes. Since the last time we met, we've seen a $13,000 increase in lane changes, so there's been some staff hard at work getting their degrees. What that means is for next year, we're gonna see a $13,000 increase over this year. The OHS Dean of Students position, we originally had that budgeted in the operational budget. That was $100,000. That has been removed. That was one of the first things that was removed when we were knocked down to the 2.5% increase. So it's $100,000. That has been funded through ESER. And secondly, the other position, there was a nurse position for $42,000. I believe it was just an LPN. That was removed as well. That was in the preliminary stages when we're discussing the nursing program. And we saw an added district tuition increase, $64,000. That was I believe, a residential student that was a cost share with Dudley Charlton that is now 100% owned by Oxford. So we saw an increase of $64,000. Preschool teacher, there was a changing in staff, which resulted in an increase of $24,000. We had at that point in time, we did have that position posted for a second ELL teacher. That has since been removed and replaced with a ELL aide. That was a change of just under $64,000. Sped long-term sub, we had long-term subs budgeted in the special education budget. That was a reduction of $78,000. I believe that was 2 long-term subs that we had originally budgeted. I spoke to the ELL aide, that was added. That was a $22,000 increase. If you do the math at a prior slide, $5,000 for the ELL curriculum and then $22,000 for the staff member. We increased the custodian from part-time to full-time union wages. So that was an increase of $13,000 for next year. And lastly, bus monitor. We had a bus monitor budgeted. That was $32,000. That was eliminated. Again, those were the major changes that have occurred since our last meetings. So again, the final balance figure is a 3% increase, or an increase of $563,279 over the fiscal '22 budget. And again, I'm sure you all have the copy of the summary, so you can see where a lot of changes have occurred.
If it's not too much,
Oh, yeah,
Mr.
no, certainly.
Ledoux. I would love the list that you just gave us with are we in the black, are we in the red compared to where we were before with all those increases, decreases that you just mentioned. I tried to jot them all down and
I went
I'll do
rather
my
quickly.
math later, but if it could just be in a nice little summary, that would be awesome. Just so I don't miss something. Because it feels like a lot of changes have occurred.
Absolutely. After the meeting, I'll, probably tomorrow, I can get you that
Yeah,
list.
no rush.
Okay.
Just,
So as you can see the budget summary. We had a, you can see the shift, and please stop me if anyone has any questions on this summary sheet. You can see the shift of the 8th grade moving to middle school. You can see a large decrease of just under 200,000 from the high school, and a large increase at the middle school. That's the, I want to say 5 staff members moving from the high school to middle school. In transportation, there's a net decrease of 26,000. A large part of that was the elimination of that bus monitor. But transportation overall, between special ed transportation and the elimination of bus monitor has reduced that. Everything else is really, with the exception of student services and the added district tuitions, everything else is really salary driven for any increases.
and the high school, again, how many, did you mention positions moving?
I want to say it was 5 positions that were moved, 5 teaching positions that were moved from the high school to the middle school. So again, you see a net decrease of about 200,000. There has been an increase at the high school in salaries, but you're going to see a decrease because those teachers were removed and put into the middle school. That's why you see such a large increase in the middle school. That's a combination of your salaries and those teachers that were moved.
Any questions on the budget summary?
Just a little bit of a breakdown of how all these costs are allocated, or how our resources are allocated, rather. As you can see, staff salaries make up over 75% of the budget, so that's where the majority of your increases are going to be. And like I said, we've said multiple times this evening, we don't know where the collective bargaining is going to end up. So we can only put in placeholders at this point in time, and but that's going to be your biggest changes, your salaries. Transportation is your second biggest cost. Transportation is roughly 8% of your budget, and that's for both special education and regular ed. And your third largest section would be your out-of-district tuition. That is roughly 4% of your operational budget. Everything else is minor in comparison.
Can you speak to the budget offset for the athletic revolving fund?
Certainly.
Why? Is that because we moved that position to a new,
The reduction in the athletic offset,
Yeah.
that's absolutely right.
it's because we moved it?
It's moving
to-
that the athletic trainer from that revolving fund to
Into our
to
budget.
the operational budget.
And how much is that salary that's moving it into our operation budget?
25,000. So the revenues that we bring in out
Won't
of those,
cover it.
it was only for a limited time to cover that position. So if that's something that we wanted to keep, it was something we would have to inevitably move to the operational budget.
And I understand the value of that position. I really, really and truly do. That's a lot,
But I think it's mandated.
Yes.
Yes.
We can't get away from
Yeah.
it. Mandated.
They mandated that 2 years ago, right? Right?
and I guess, are all the other positions that were like funding through the gate receipts and all that, are those all mandated?
The game workers,
Yeah, the game workers.
There are sports that require
mandated.
you have game administrators, on-site personnel.
Right.
Work the tables, yes. I'm not sure what the specific regulations are, but there are some, yes. I know soccer has to have a game administrator, different
'Cause
sports.
I wonder, like,
different sports
that's-
require them.
I don't know if it's 16,000, 17,000, right? So if we're looking at that coupled with this other, it's a large investment. I mean, I want our sports to be what they are, and I want to do everything the way it should be done. But I also want to kind of understand the cost and understand how it's changed over the years, and if we're really investing more, or if this was just kind of always what we spent to have that program, or if there's an upward trend in our spending that's more significant than in the past.
I would say it hasn't changed much. I just think they formalized it more. I mean, think about it, when you're in the building during the day in a classroom, you have the teacher, you might have a paraprofessional come in, you might have a so you have all the support. And then when you go to the athletic events or any extracurricular, you have coaches. But then there's also other people needed. You do need scorekeepers. You need somebody to keep the clock at games. So there are, you can rely on people volunteering, but you do need to assure that student athletes have access, or, theater performers have access. I mean, if you don't have the lights and you don't have somebody doing the sound, and so there's all these things that when you're outside of the school scope, when you're extracurricular, you do need to have some positions. So I understand what you're saying. We just have to find a way to maximize if we can and be efficient with it, but we also gotta figure out ways to
Yeah, I
fund
know
it.
some schools do like certain things in stipends, and they have certain things that are contractual, and I guess what I'm trying to get a better handle on is if this is something that we're doing through receipts that might not be generating enough revenue, right? The sustainability for it is what I question. So if it's something that's budgeted, right, and we know that contractually, certain people do certain positions, if it's students all doing these positions, that's one thing, I guess, but if it's people that are in our staff, then can't we get a firmer handle on exactly what we have to spend every year and budget it in
I
a
think
way
that's
where
what-
it's,
I think that's what they're doing.
no,
now.
I get that, as far as the how we offset our budget with the 25,000 for the athletic trainer, that I understand. I'm questioning the other more fluid amount of money that I keep seeing in warrants coming in and out, and I would like a better handle on that personally, so we plan better, that's all. I keep trying to,
Yeah, we could give you like a guesstimate of what's needed every sport, every season.
yeah, I mean, it
So
would
like
just be
soccer has a
nice.
certain amount, basketball has a
Oh,
certain amount.
it's all in here. It's
You know,
all.
If I may,
Yeah.
on the athletic, the operational budget portion of it, not the revolving fund, under support staff, our athletic director did provide a breakdown,
yeah.
I believe, of how many games and how
Yep.
many positions
Yep.
with the amount. It's a very detailed
I'm looking at right now. Yeah.
section.
Yep.
For example, the timekeepers and scores, he has 68. So I'm assuming that's the number of games. Game administrators, 31. Ticket takers, additional staff, 44. With the rate per game. Announcers, 5, and homecoming staff, just 1. So I'm assuming that's his best guess at this
Yep.
point in time of how many games and how many workers with the rate of pay. It's
Yep.
And I apologize, I might have missed
Yeah,
some of
no,
this
no, no
at
worries.
our budget workshop, I
I
did
know
miss one of them, so.
over the years, it's kind of flowed back and forth. Sometimes it's operational budget, sometimes it's paid for out of receipts. The athletic revolving, we do have a section for athletic officials for $18,000, but that's not as, detailed. It just says athletic officials. So I'm assuming that that's the refs, as that's not part of the game workers. That's the referees.
Yep.
I hope I have that right.
No, that's the referees, that's the
Exactly.
officials, yep. It's great, because we have staff that here that, a lot of the high school events are high school teachers or staff members,
Right.
and they know the kids and want to support the kids, so it's great. It's also beneficial to have them on hand if something goes wrong, or, they know everybody who's in the game and all the kids that can support them, so it's a
So-
benefit to the kids in that way, too.
The athletic director has requested $6,500 for all those support staff for the games. That's what the total is. That does not include the the referees.
Yeah, so, and then one reason I ask all these questions is, one thing that came up at the FinCom meeting was there was discussion about people wanting to understand why we don't charge for busing and transportation, and there was a kind of a little bit of a discussion there. And I know we charge athletic fees, and it costs a lot to do all these things, and we're always trying to not raise costs for our students and provide them everything we possibly can in a very, very sound budget. And so, when I ask these questions, I just really want, sometimes I don't know if our community goes through these budgets in the detail that we do. And I want people to understand that, we're working as hard as we can to give everybody the best value, but our parents also invest in this. There's other key stakeholders that invest in these these offerings that we have here, and then we're always trying to figure out if we're charging the right amount, if we're doing the right thing by our students, so, yeah, that's all.
All right.
So the 5-year budget history, I believe this is what you were
Yeah.
alluding to earlier. If there's a discrepancy in the foundation enrollment, I honestly don't know what to tell you, as this slide is the same slide that was at the finance committee
Yeah.
meeting. So there it is. It's the same information.
Yeah, no, it's the same, that's where they got it. I was
Yep.
just going back to the 3-year enrollment that we had, the 3-year history, and we only had 1463.
And Mr. Lucas had answered the question.
1563, but Mike had answered that it was charter school.
I think it includes the charter or some of the private parochial schools. We had Suzanne Kelly, remember, came and gave us a
Yep.
presentation. I can double check those numbers and get back to you guys on it if you want me to. I'm happy to do that. But
So, just a kind of overview of this slide here. The foundation enrollment, that's what the state uses as a mechanism for funding. So that's inclusive of the kids that go to Oxford, plus your charter school kids, and I believe those are the two biggest areas. So when the state gives Oxford the Chapter 70 state aid, it's based on that enrollment, that foundation enrollment. It's not necessarily how many kids are going to Oxford. On what's called the cherry sheet is where you'll see the state aid. On the backside of that is assessment. So essentially what happens is they give you your Chapter 70 state aid, and then on the backside of that, they give you an assessment for your charter school costs. That's what's happening. So for comparison, when we look at what our budget request is here for the general fund appropriation, the 19 million for next year, as a portion of that, you can see that roughly half of that is through the Chapter 70 funding. I want to say about 600,000 goes to charter school, but I'd have to pull the actual cherry sheet to look at it to see what the assessment is for next year. And I know that hasn't been set in stone yet. That'll change as the budget goes through the state process.
We haven't gotten those cherry sheets yet, correct?
The initial governor's budget has been released. I believe I have a copy here if you want to take a look at it. I did just pull it before the meeting. So charter school sending tuition, as part of the governor's proposed budget for next year, is $535,000. And you can have a copy of this if you'd like. So 500,000 out of that 10 million is going to charter schools. The reason why this is important, I want to show that roughly 50% of our operational budget is paid for by state aid through Chapter 70 funding. The other 8 million is picked up through local taxes, if you will. But I just wanted to show the comparison. The thing that's very static, you can see the Chapter 70 aid has not changed very much over the past 5 years. It's stayed pretty much the same. The reason for that is it's impacted by your foundation enrollment. We're at hold harmless, meaning we can't go lower, but we're probably not going to go much higher anytime soon because we haven't seen a giant increase in enrollment. In fact, it's going down. That's why your Chapter 70 aid is staying pretty static over the years, but you're seeing an increase to the local share over the years. It's more to show the trend of what's happening in town. You're seeing the enrollment decrease, the state aid staying the same, and then the town share going up. That's what's happening.
Right, and with 86% of our costs yearly to salary and transportation that go up every year,
It's going to go up every year.
this is where the problem lies.
Right.
Yeah, and some of that being the homeless transportation, the special ed transportation, and all of that, which is not really well-funded.
Correct.
All right,
So it was more just to show the trend over the years as to what's happening. You can see increased cost, reduced enrollment. There's no easy answer to this. When we talk about decreasing enrollment, it's not all in, for example, a second grade. It's not all second grade is gone. It's spread across 1,500 students. It's all different areas. So there's no easy place to just simply cut and say, hey, this we're all done with this. Because it's all over the place.
Right.
You might see a large change in just one year. You might see a large increase in, like, for example, we were talking about grade 5. This current year, you're going to see a bubble class.
Right.
So therefore, you would need more grade 5 teachers, where you might have a reduction in another grade. So there's no clear, simple solution to this. I'll put it
That's
that
why,
way.
like, kind of going back to the point brought up about the busing and the transportation, when people just say, well, just cut a bus. Can't just cut a bus, because that bus could be, you know, it's not students in one spot. They're all over the place, and
Correct.
can't necessarily capture enough students to justify decreasing that.
We were just speaking about this today, and geographically, Oxford hasn't shrunk in size. It's still the
Right.
same size town.
Right.
And, you know, unless that happens, it's still gonna take the same amount of time to drive from point A to point B.
Right.
It just, who knows how many students are gonna be in between there to pick up. So, there's no easy answer for reducing buses either. It's the same situation.
Right.
You would really have to fine tune the routing ultimately, really fine tune your counts, how many, the ridership, through maybe a registration process or something like that. There's a lot of work that should be done. I'll put it that way.
Right.
We talked about that years ago, I think even before I was on the board.
And we did a lot of work trying to get that and establishing those walk boundaries, and still, students were on the bus for over an hour at a time just to get back and forth between school and home. It felt like we worked really hard to try to make it so those kids weren't on for that long, and still it was difficult at times.
All right, Molly?
I don't know if you know this, but do other school districts charge to ride, like, for people to ride the bus?
I believe Auburn does, I believe Douglas does. Those are the two immediate ones I know off the top
Okay.
of my head. I would have to honestly research other surrounding towns, so some do and some don't.
Is that something like we've ever looked into?
We
Oh,
have.
okay, okay.
And because our population, a lot of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch, we can't capture the funds from those families. And so, would we get enough to really offset the cost of a bus? Probably not. It would be, I'm thinking maybe like half the cost of a bus. I could be wrong.
The purpose isn't necessarily to pay for a bus. The purpose is to make people serious about whether or not they're going to take the bus.
Yeah.
In some situations, you know, if you just have a registration process, and this is just theoretical, you know, mom may register for the bus but drives, you know, so many days during the week, depending on the work schedule.
Yeah.
When you charge a fee, again, the goal isn't to make money, it's really to make people serious about riding the bus.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
You can then shrink your bus total. if
Yeah,
you
that's
only-
what I was
If you only have so many
thinking.
people committed to it. So.
You know, and if there's ever a time to explore that again, I know it's short time and, you know, there's not a lot left in the year, but, you know, as we come out of the pandemic again, we had to poll parents over the past couple of years, whether you were gonna come into school hybrid, so we were able to gather some good data, get groupings together. It might be a time to take a look at that again, if, you know, if things get tight, because we can, to your point, we just want to know, all right, if we have to schedule 50 kids for bus 10, here are the 50 kids. So we need to know, are you driving the bus or you're not driving the bus? If you're not, that gives us the numbers, and then we can drive routes off of that.
correct.
I mean, maybe it is the time to relook at it, you know, with the technology that's out there, and and again, people are kind of used to, you had to last year, are you coming hybrid, are you coming, staying full remote?
Right.
Options, I mean, so maybe it's a time to look at it.
Did take ridership counts earlier in the year. I did request, just recently to get ridership counts again this week, so we can take another look at that to see, I mean, first and foremost, let's just see what the participation is. If the participation isn't there, then maybe we should be really taking a hard look at that, so.
Yeah, all right. Any other questions? I just have one point for clarification. So if I'm reading this correctly, FY '22, this current year, we have one school choice student in the district?
Correct. One school choice, in our public schools.
That's it.
That's it.
And if I read this correctly as well from our couple weeks ago, 94 choiced out.
Right, and some of
That
those
sounds
could be
about right.
Yes,
homeschool.
94 choice
choiced
out to
out.
other public schools.
Other public schools. So 94
You're correct.
to 1. Just want that out there.
Yep.
And students that are homeschool students don't count in the choice out?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, any other questions on the budget? If not, we do need a motion to exit the public hearing.
If I may, I believe
Oh.
you need to, just take a vote to certify the budget figure.
Well, that's coming down the line.
Oh, it doesn't have to be done?
Yep.
Thank you.
We do need a motion to exit public hearing on the budget and school choice.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin? I'm a yes, 3 yes, 2 absent. So we now are out of the public hearing. Public comment, I am going to open the floor. Comments are limited to topics relating to school business. Speakers must identify themselves by name and address and will be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Although the school committee may hear comments on unanticipated topics, discussion or action on topics not specifically listed on the agenda will be postponed until a future meeting date. The public comment floor is open. Seeing no one out there from the public, I'm going to close public comment and go over to our student rep, Molly Raymond.
I do not have a middle school report for today. For the high school, the 8th graders are winning the 2022 Pennies for Patients Penny Wars that is hosted by NHS. This ends on Thursday. The class of 2024 is hosting a fundraiser at Chuck's in Auburn this Wednesday from 4:30 to close. Please email Ms. Nugent if you would like a flyer. The GSA has been rebranded and is now known as the Quality Alliance. They are looking forward to presenting at an upcoming faculty meeting. Stay tuned for the date of their presentation. The senior class had great success with the MCM butter braids fundraiser. They are being delivered tomorrow and are to be picked up after school. We are now hosting a fundraiser with Meadow Farms. This is an online-only fundraiser. Today was the first day of prom sale tickets, and dues must be paid in full in order to buy a ticket. April will be a busy month for the senior class, and we would like to thank everyone for their support. The Student Council is hosting a talent show in the coming weeks. More information will be posted later on this week on the Student Council Instagram, which is at Oxford High Stuco. And congratulations to all the students that participated in the school musical Xanadu. They put on a great show this weekend.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Molly? I'll put you on the spot before you go. Did I hear that you have made a choice on your call?
Yes.
Where are you going?
UMass Amherst.
Oh, that's great.
Congratulations. Good job.
Congratulations.
So we are going to excuse Molly. She does have some studying to take care of tonight. So Molly, thank you very much and congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Good job. Consent agenda, we do have meeting minutes of March 14th, our regular meeting. We do need to approve those minutes. We need a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
I'm a yes, 3 yes, 2 absent. We also had the field trip. We do need to approve a field trip. Mr. Lucas, do you have that in front of you that you want to
I do have it in front of me.
mind reading it for us?
Yes, this is from Master Chief K. This is for West Point, New York, followed by Philadelphia Art Museums, the Liberty Bell, Constitution Hall, and it looks like it says the Eastern Gateway in Philadelphia. No cadet will be excluded. Due to financial difficulties, they'll help anybody out. It is out of state and it is overnight, so it needs your approval.
Okay, do we have any questions?
30 students going.
30 students, 4 chaperones, it looks like. Any questions that Mr. Lucas could answer?
I guess no nurse needed, that many students.
Not to my knowledge.
Do you want to look up in the policy manual before we go?
I don't know if it's necessarily in the policy for a certain amount of students or not.
All right, so we do need a motion to approve or have more discussion.
It was approved by the nurse, the district
Yeah.
nurse, Amy
Right.
Gurnett did
Amy
approve it.
Burnett
but-
signed off.
I'll make a motion. It does make me nervous. I'm assuming that people have training and know how to take care of the kids if something happens, but,
They do.
yeah.
They do. So that, are you making a motion to approve
Yeah.
the trip? All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, any more discussion? Call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yep.
And I'm a yes, 3 yes,
Thank you.
2 absent. Superintendent of Schools, a couple of updates.
Yes, thank you. I want to give you guys an update on preschool. You guys had asked me to look into it and do some exploration. Right now, we have a wonderful preschool program at Barton. We service our 3 and 4-year-olds with special needs and their peers. Our 3-year-olds go 4 half-days a week, and our 4-year-olds go 5 half-days a week. What we're looking into, would it be worth it for us to do an all-day preschool, full day? 2 weeks ago, we met with the Millbury administrators. It was wonderful. We had a great Zoom meeting, got to ask a lot of questions. Justin was also there and got to chat with their financial guy. So we got a lot of information from that. So today, Kristen Miller and I, our special ed director in student services, went and visited Millbury for a couple hours and got all their information, saw some wonderful preschool programming that they do for their children. Their program is funded approximately 50% from fees that are charged to families, 5% from grants, and 45% is from their general budget. So this is something we do decide to do. I'm going to have to come back to you guys and have a discussion about that. At this time, we are now ready to send out a survey to our potential preschool families and see what the interest is here in the town of Oxford. Once I have those results, I'll come back and update the committee further with the results of that survey. Other public schools typically charge their families anywhere from $5,500 to $7,500 a year, depending on what town you look at. Private preschools also vary between $5,500 and $13,000 a year, but some of those hours are different too. Typically, a full-day preschool is 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Some privates go longer and earlier and stuff like that and have extended days. So we'd have to talk about what we would want to charge for that also. But at this point, the next step for us is to send out the survey to all eligible families and figure out what we have for numbers and for interest. I'll take any questions if there's questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I'll get back to the committee on that. We did have one personnel to update. Tess Malley is our new long-term substitute art teacher. We're very excited to have her joining us at the middle school. So she'll finish out the year there as an art teacher. So welcome, Tess. And that's all I have tonight.
All right.
Oh, could I say one more thing? Sorry.
Sure.
Wanted to congratulate the kids at the middle school and high school for Xanadu, as Molly said. Went Saturday night. It was awesome. Their voices were incredible. Great songs. Congratulations to Mrs. Looney and Miss Rutgwitz. They just did a great job. It was really cool to see. There were a ton of middle school kids involved, a ton of high school kids involved. I just think it's awesome that they blended both schools together. It was really what a great opportunity for kids. So I just wanted to congratulate them on that and the kids. It was awesome. It was fun. A lot of 80s tunes. I'm an 80s kid, so it brought back a lot of funny memories with the music. But they did a great job. Really well done.
It's awesome.
Great,
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, on to our business. So we do have the fiscal year 2023 operating budget. You need to take a vote, so I guess I'm just looking for some clarification from our business manager. When you talked about the timeline, the FY23 budget document provided to the Finance Committee, the Town Manager, and the Finance Director, when is the date that needs to get to them by? Have you already established a date?
For a finalized copy?
Well, yeah, just on the timeline, you have March to May. I obviously know the town meeting's in May, so the FY23 budget document to the Finance Committee. When, do you guys have a date set that you're gonna give that to them? Are they anticipating it at a certain time? Just
There's
because
no-
we have 2 members not here tonight.
Correct. There's no particular date. We have to get a finalized document to them. We would absolutely want to have something finalized for the town meeting the first week in May.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. But no, I've given them all a draft of our draft copy at this point in time. So unless, if the committee would like any more changes, or as we firm up our collective bargaining agreements, things like that happen, I can certainly update them, but there's no hard date that we have to get this to them.
Okay. So I guess committee members, I mean, it's on the agenda to take a vote tonight. We could postpone the vote, but if we're feeling comfortable to vote tonight, I want to hear the interest of the board.
I'm happy to postpone the vote if it's not, a really pending thing. I want to give all people an opportunity to share their questions, concerns, and I always feel like that's the best thing to do, is to have the full board present, so.
I agree with Pal.
Okay. So do we want to, do we have to take a vote to postpone, Helen? Is that how we would have to do it?
You don't have to vote that, no, we can just
Okay.
put it on the next agenda.
All right, so our next meeting is the 14th, I believe,
11.
11th, right? So we'll move it to the 11th. I think one thing I would like is to know a little bit more about those 2 special ed positions. Like, is there a way that we can, figure out how to get them into the budget? Or is there some other things, and are there any other questions that
The
people?
only other question that comes to mind is if there is the full-day preschool program, and Mr. Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong, saying that 45% might have to come out of the general budget.
Correct.
What would that be?
Correct.
Where would we get that?
In speaking to other school districts, it's typically about $90,000 to $100,000 per preschool room, because you want a teacher and an aide in every room. So that's your cost. If you have 15 students in a classroom, or 16 or 17 students, and 10 are full paying, and if it's $6,500 a year, that pays for X, and then you can figure out the rest from there. So
How many rooms do you anticipate? Just,
we would probably just pilot one the first year. It's what other school districts have done. Have one full day preschool and kind of launch it that way and see how it goes from there.
and what's the staff again that you would?
You want one teacher and one aide in every room. So you'd have to add 2 staff members for that.
Right.
But I can come back with more information once we see what our response is from the community.
Okay. Any other questions within the budget for next time? All right, so we will just, as long as it doesn't sound like it's pressing time, we are gonna postpone that vote till we have a full board. School choice. I'm of the same mindset of waiting till our whole board is here, so that we can have, I think this is an important decision, and I think we need to talk a little bit more about it. But the pleasure of the 2 members here, Ms. Cook, Mrs. Griffin.
I'm happy to wait.
I agree.
All right, so we're gonna wait on that vote as well. Superintendent evaluation process, I just want to update everybody. Want to make sure that all members are on the same page with respect to the superintendent evaluation process. We would like to have the process done before the election. It's been decided that all 4 standards with all indicators and elements will be used, and here's our timeline. March 15, the executive assistant, Helen, sent out the blank evaluation form and the superintendent goals, so we've all received that. April 15, the superintendent will send us his evidence. April 25th, the members should return your individual evaluation to me. On May 2nd, I'm going to provide a copy of the evaluation to the superintendent for his review. And then May 9th, we will present his evaluation at a public meeting. So is there any questions from the board members that are here on that? Okay. Subcommittee reports, policy committee, Pal, anything?
We did meet, and we had a very productive meeting, and I'm sure there'll be many policies for us to review at a future meeting. But we did meet last Thursday.
All right, when is our next meeting, do you know?
I feel like it's every 3 weeks, but I don't remember off the top of my head the next date. I apologize.
All right. Not a problem. Personnel and negotiations, neither of our members are here, although I am proud of one of those now. And we did have some good conversations with the instructional assistants. I feel like we made some good progress, and I believe we meet the 31st. So I think this week we meet again. I'm not sure if the superintendent has any updates on either or the other. No? Okay.
Not at this time.
All right. School buildings and safety, that's Molly and myself, nothing on our front. District accountability and curriculum, Pal, any updates from
We
you?
did meet, and I can't recall if I spoke about it at the last meeting. I think it was in between
Yeah, I think you-
meetings.
yeah, you guys were heading towards
We
it.
had a fantastic presentation on our math data, and I think we have some information that hopefully will be shared by our superintendent, might come forth and share some of that data with us. There is plans to kind of address math that's in the works. I'm looking forward to kind of hearing what those plans are. I think it would, you know, see areas for some growth, which we knew about.
All right, great. And Mrs. Forbes, before she had to leave, said there was really no update on the diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we do have a warrant report from Mrs. Griffin.
So I have a warrant report for this evening, March 28th, 2022. I signed a payroll warrant dated March 17th, 2022 for $717,850.12. An accounts payable warrant dated March 22nd, 2022 for $147,981.55. And an accounts payable warrant dated March 28th, 2022 for $104,492.78. And that is all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Members forum. Ms. Cook, anything?
Not much. Just thank you everyone for putting in the effort into this. That was a work of art. I know not everyone likes to look at it, but a lot of effort went into it, so I appreciate that. And yeah.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Griffin.
No, I'm very grateful for all the hard work that happens behind the scenes as well for the budget, and I appreciate the presentation that these gentlemen gave
Thank you.
this week. That was awesome to see you guys speaking to the town, and I think we're making lots of strides. I'm really, really impressed with our superintendent. He's done a lot to, in 1 year, huge vision, moving us forward, really, you know, it's inspiring to watch.
Thank you.
I thank you,
I
because
got a lot of help and support. So
you
it's a
do,
big
you certainly
difference.
do, and you got a great team, and it's awesome to see all the cool stuff that's coming in front of us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Not much for me, other than the fact of, you know, as a principal, I say this a lot to parents, guardians, students. If you have an issue or a concern, not that you're not allowed to go to Facebook, of course you can, but I always advise people go directly to the sources. There's been some stuff lately on the Facebook page. Again, it's everybody's right to free speech and to promote what you want to promote out there. I get that. But if you really want problems solved or you want answers, I would go directly to, you know, the building principals, obviously, if it's a school-based issue, you know, teachers first, school building principals or assistant principals next. But if there's bigger issues regarding, you know, financial issues or concerns with, you know, student enrollment, et cetera, again, great forums on there, and there's usually, you know, pretty respectful conversation that goes back and forth, but to get the clear facts, I would go through the superintendent. If you haven't met him, to Mrs. Griffin's point, he's a very approachable guy, he's a very visible guy, he's out there. If he doesn't have the answer, which he doesn't have all the answers, because none of us have all the answers, he'll get you the answer. He'll get back to you with great members of his team, and Justin and Helen and others in his admin team. He'll get you the answer. So again, please don't take my message the wrong way. I'm not saying you can't go onto those forums. Of course you can. But if you really truly want the answer, I would say go to the source. That's just my message for tonight. I am going to open the floor for final public comment. And I don't see anybody that has come back into the public comments. I'm going to close that. Future business, any agenda topic items that any of you have right now?
Maybe an update on math as being a future focus for kind of our targeted kind of recovery to kind of help our students as they're progressing.
So what do you want to have specifically?
I just know that we discussed a little bit at the data and accountability, like curriculum. I'm at loss of words at this
Yeah.
hour, I apologize, but we kind of looked at that data and just to see, you know, where we're going, because we've got a vision and we've really targeted our students in
So do you want
reading
the
and writing.
superintendent to give us a report, or do you want the curriculum coordinator to come
I'm
in?
gonna leave it to the superintendent to work out how he would like to give us an update on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. We're looking at a lot of different things and strategies and talking about those
Yeah.
with our admin team, so if I could have a little time, we'll absolutely do that.
Yeah,
we'd be happy to.
And I know you got a
Yeah.
lot on,
We
a
could,
lot to.
like, May would be great. We'll have a really good idea of what we're gonna do probably in May. We look at
Sounds good.
all of our stuff. That'd be great.
All right.
Happy to
Thank
share
you.
that.
So if anything comes up between now and next week, you know, just let me know, and we can pass it along to Helen.
Yeah,
And I believe that is it. We do need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion and a second.
second.
Any discussion?
No.
Call for the vote, Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin? I'm a
Yes.
yes. 3 yes, 2 no's, excuse me, 2 absent. Meeting is over. Have a great night.